Hey class, in this podcast, I want to start talking about, or I want to talk about what I want from you next week. And that's the outline of your paper. And outlines are really important. I'm, I'm pleased. I think most of you have very, very good topics. In fact, everybody has a good topic. It seems like most of you have uh, done a lot of research, that you have a lot of evidence that you want to present as well, which is very exciting. Um, but here's the thing that's the advantage of an outline. It forces you to choose what is the best way to present your evidence. What's the order you're going to present your evidence in? You can't talk about everything all at once. What you have to do is lay out an argument. And again, you might think of yourself as a lawyer. Historians and lawyers often do the same thing, or it's very similar. Um, what you will do in your paper is you'll set out an argument that this paper argues, and then what you'll do is you'll present evidence in the body of the paper supporting your argument, and then you'll have a conclusion where you talk about how your argument has been supported, and what your paper demonstrates, that what you said up top was correct. So the great thing about outlines is that it gives you a chance to think about what is the order that you're going to present your evidence in. So I have on the screen share an outline that I'm going to post and send to everybody. And I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about the order of the outline. Um, First thing first, outlines, you have to have an introduction. That makes sense. I don't think that's too complicated. So what's the goal of the introduction? Well, first of all, the introduction is about 1 to 3 pages. It should not be longer than 3 pages, and probably most of your introductions will be shorter than 3 pages. You introduce your topic to your reader. What is it exactly that you're writing about? Remember, I want you to create in your mind a reader, and I'm not your reader. Choose someone from your life who's intelligent, who knows the basic story of World War II, but they don't know what you're writing about. So create someone in your head that you're writing this paper for. And the reason that I say don't write it for me is that often when students are writing papers for professors, they take shortcuts because they think, I don't have to say this, the professor already knows it, so I'm not going to repeat it. If when you create a reader in your head, your reader doesn't, you don't have to explain to your reader what World War II is. Your reader knows, uh, of course, what the war is, but your reader doesn't know about your exact topic. And so what you're trying to do is, when you create this reader, is create a person that's, how can I best explain what my topic is, what I'm arguing is, and how I'm presenting my evidence? How can I do that to the reader that I've created in my mind? So create an ideal reader in your head that you're writing this paper for. And again, it's somebody from your life. I've said this to a bunch of folks. When I was writing my first book, I was writing for my uncle, who, I wrote a book on veterans homes, the origins of the VA hospital system after the Civil War. And my uncle worked in government, and he didn't know anything about veterans homes after the Civil War, but he was a smart guy. He was very experienced in government. So I would constantly be thinking, okay, does this make sense to Uncle Fred? Can Uncle Fred follow the argument that I'm making? And I just think it's a technique that helps when you're writing to create an ideal reader. Okay, so introduction, you want to introduce your topic of the infinite number of topics that anybody could write. What is your topic? You want to state your thesis. And often the introduction and the statement of the thesis can be intertwined. So you don't have to follow this order here. I'm just, what what I'm showing you under introduction, these are the tasks that you need to complete in your introduction. Okay, you need to complete these tasks, these basic tasks in your introduction. Okay, number one, you need to make sure that your topic's introduced, that your reader knows what it is you're writing about. Number two, you need to explain to your reader what the argument is that you're making about your topic. And then number three, that you want to outline the structure of your argument. What it's what we call a roadmap. You'll say something, as this paper will show, and what you can do in this outlining the structure of your argument, it can be basically an extension of, I'm arguing this in my paper, and this is what I'll show in the paper. So let's say you're writing about the Marines fighting at Iwo Jima. You could talk about how I'm showing their bravery, I'm showing their tactical skill, I'm showing their ability to shift their tactics in the face of the Japanese counterattack. I'm showing the importance of artillery in defeating the Japanese. I'm showing the importance of the Navy in defeating the Japanese. And basically what you do is you're touching upon some of the main points that you're going to make in your paper. And you don't have to go into detail about these main points. You're just kind of letting your reader know what they're going to see. I don't know if your many students listen to Broadway plays. I think a lot of people these days have listened to Hamilton, but Broadway plays have an overture. And what the overture is, it plays little bits of every song that in a musical that's going to be played. And so think about your introduction as kind of an overture to your paper, where you introduce your topic, you introduce your main ideas, and you touch upon the main points that you're going to make in your paper. So those are the tasks that you need to complete in your intro, in your 1 to 3 pages. Now, obviously, you can't go into huge detail about the points that you're making in your paper. You're just touching on them. And so you can't go into detail on them, but that's okay. Basically, what you're doing is you're making a promissory note to your reader. Okay, this is what you're going to see in the paper. And another way to think about the introduction, it's an orientation for your reader. You're orienting your reader as to what your topic is, what your thesis is, and the main points that you're going to make in your paper. So one of the ways that you might want to think about introduction is it's an orientation to your reader, where you're telling them in a kind of, you're sketching out what they're going to see in the paper. You're letting them know exactly what you're writing about and what your argument is. And then you're sketching out the points that you're going to make in your paper, in the narrative part of the paper. So that's what the introduction is. And like I say, overture or orientation, that's how you want to think about your introduction. And you have to do this in, like I say, 1 to 3 pages. 3 pages is probably a little bit too long. It should not be longer than 3 pages in a 20-page paper. It could be as short as a page and a half. There's no set rule here. I think 2 pages for most of you will suffice. Again, 3 main jobs. What's your topic? What's your thesis? And what are the basic points you're going to make along the way? Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, you need to give the background of your topic. So let's go back to the Iwo Jima again. You can just say that the US Navy had been island hopping from Pearl Harbor until Iwo Jima. And that's all you have to say. So your background is, you're just kind of setting the scene. You're setting the context for your topic. You're letting your reader know that history doesn't start with your topic, that some things have happened that have led up to what you're writing about. I actually always find the background part of these papers a little bit the hardest to write myself, because you always feel like, or I always feel like, well, I have to over explain things. You really don't have to over explain things. All you have to do is kind of give a thumbnail sketch of the context that has led up to what you're writing about. Okay. And it should be 1 to 2 pages, no more than 2 pages. You don't want to get lost in your background. You basically just want to get your reader up to snuff. And so it's just you're contextualizing your paper, you're contextualizing your topic. Here's how we got to this point. And from this point on, I'm going to go into more detail. Okay. So for the assignment for next week, for the background section, you actually don't really have to say too much, if anything, for what you turn into me next week. You can just leave it as background, because that's the task of this section, is just to give background, and you don't really have to write anything for me next week. You can just put background. I don't need to see anything. That's something that you'll create when you write the paper. So I'm going to stop this portion of the podcast here. Just to review your intro, you have 3 basic tasks in your intro: introduce your topic, what's your thesis, and outline the structure of the argument, the main points, kind of the roadmap of your paper. And then number 2, the background of the topic, which is 1 to 2 pages. The intro is 1 to 3 pages. And for next week, all you have to put is background. You don't really have to fill that in. I just think that would be a waste of time. Okay, and now in the next podcast, I'll talk about the narrative, or the body part of the paper.